They said it was a family decision, that my name was just a formality, that the house I built, paid for, and dreamed about was never truly mine. It started with a dinner. It ended with a suitcase and a stranger sleeping in my bed. They changed the locks, moved my furniture, erased every trace of me, while smiling over wine like nothing had happened. But what they didn't know was that I had the deed, the footage, and a lawyer who names lawsuits like novels. I had envisioned that night differently. I had spent the whole afternoon setting up the table, polished silverware, navy blue napkins, the wine I knew Dad liked, and Rachel's favorite garlic knots. For the first time in years, I had something to offer them. My home, my name on the deed, my keys on the hook, my own place. I thought they'd be proud. They weren't. My father picked apart the layout. "You really think white countertops are practical? You cook with turmeric." My mother ran her finger across the mantel and said, "So much dust." Rachel said nothing at first. Then, as she walked down the hallway, her voice floated back. "It feels staged, like an Airbnb pretending to be a home." The words stung more than I let on, but I held it together. Until dessert. That was when my father laid his spoon down, slow and deliberate, and said, "Emily, leave the key on the table." I blinked. "What?" My mother didn't look at me. "It's for your own good. You're getting too attached to something that's not really yours." My pulse quickened. "I bought this house." "With our help," Rachel said. "Who gave you the down payment? Who co-signed before backing out? Don't act like this is all you." I stood up. "That was a gift, you said so." Rachel stood too and placed a suitcase next to my chair. I hadn't even noticed it in the room. It was my suitcase, already packed. "We figured you'd take this badly," she said. "But it's better if you go quietly." I was shaking, but I still asked why. My father looked me dead in the eye. "Because we need this house for someone who deserves it. Rachel and Noah are expecting. They need the space." My world tilted. The keys felt heavy in my hand. I walked to the door without another word. But before I left, I looked back once. They were already clearing the table, like I had never lived there. That night I slept in my car. But I wasn't done, not even close. The next morning I returned. I didn't have a plan, just a pit in my stomach and a quiet rage that hadn't slept. The car windows were foggy from my breath, my body stiff from curling up in the back seat with a blanket that barely reached my knees. I needed a toothbrush. I needed clean clothes. I needed to feel like I still existed. I still had my key, so I used it. But the lock resisted. I jiggled it again, nothing. Third time, the truth clicked. They had changed the locks overnight. I stood there, knuckles white around my key, eyes stinging, the silence of the porch pressing in on me. The same porch I had swept every Sunday. The one with the little lavender bush I planted to ward off mosquitoes. I walked around back, slid my phone through a crack in the window and took a photo. Inside, the frames were gone. Every photo of me was missing. The walls had been repainted. My blue couch, the one I'd saved 3 paychecks for, was covered in Rachel's brown throw. The bookshelf I'd arranged alphabetically was stacked with parenting magazines. It was like I never lived there, like I had been erased. I didn't knock, I didn't ring the doorbell. Instead, I crouched down by the lavender bush, still fragrant, still growing, but even it had been trimmed into something neat and unfamiliar. And that's when I saw it, the trash bags, tucked behind the shed, one half open, revealing a stack of journals, my old sketch pad, and a chipped mug that said "Future Homeowner" in gold script. I pulled out the sketch pad. A sticky note was slapped across the cover, Rachel's handwriting. "She won't need this where she's going." That was the moment something shifted inside me, not just sadness, not even anger. Clarity. This wasn't just about a house, this was about erasure, about rewriting me out of my own story. And I wasn't going to let them get away with it. Not quietly. 2 days later, I came back. This time not to plead or to knock. I came back to see who lived in my house now. I parked across the street, tucked behind a neighbor's SUV. It was early evening. Lights were on inside, curtains drawn. But the porch light? That was new. A different bulb, warmer, softer. A woman sat in my porch swing. She was rocking gently, a baby monitor in her hand, and Rachel's brown cardigan draped around her shoulders. I had never seen her before. She looked up and stretched, and I saw it clearly. A key on a lanyard around her neck. My house key, or a copy of it. I stepped out of the car, slow. She didn't notice me until I was near the curb. "Can I help you?" she asked, not unkindly, not like Rachel would have said it. I forced a polite smile. "I used to live here, just passing by." She tilted her head. "You must be Emily." The name hit me like a slap. "Rachel talks about you, says you moved out unexpectedly." "Moved out?" I swallowed. "You live here now?" She nodded. "Just until Rachel and Noah get things settled. They offered me the guest room. I watch their baby sometimes. It's quiet. Nice neighborhood." She paused. Funny though, your name's still on the Wi-Fi. My jaw tightened, my name still on the Wi-Fi. Do you mind if I take a quick photo of the porch? I asked. For memory. She shrugged. Sure. I raised my phone, but not for the swing or the flowers. I zoomed in on the door. The new welcome mat, the ring camera, the faint mark where my EM monogram had once been carved into the frame. They hadn't just moved me out. They had replaced me. And they hadn't even done it legally. I walked back to my car, heart pounding but face calm. That night, I sent a message to someone I hadn't spoken to in months. Jesse, hey, I need your help. You still do tenant rights and property law? A reply came within minutes. Jesse, for you? Always. Jessie met me at a diner just outside town. She hadn't changed much. Same leather satchel, same clipped tone that always made judges sit up straighter. I slid into the booth across from her, the scent of burnt coffee and hope lingering between us. Let's start with what you still have, she said. I opened my backpack, pulled out a folder with everything I'd managed to scrape together over the past 48 hours, printouts of mortgage payments, a notarized copy of the deed, old utility bills, the Wi-Fi registration, and yes, the photo of the stranger on my porch. Jesse's eyes flicked over the documents. You bought the house entirely under your name, no co-signers on final paperwork? I shook my head. Rachel and Dad offered to help, but pulled out last minute. I covered the rest, every cent. She nodded slowly. That makes things easier. Jessie pulled out her tablet and opened a blank folder titled Emily v. The Usurpers. Cute, I said, half laughing. Not a joke, she replied. It's how I win cases. I name them like novels. She leaned forward. Let's make this very clear, Emily. If they changed the locks, removed your property, moved someone in, and they're not listed anywhere on ownership, what they did is called illegal eviction. It's not just wrong, it's criminal. Hearing it said aloud steadied something inside me. I wasn't overreacting, I wasn't being dramatic. I was being erased. We spent the next week building the case like architects with blueprints of betrayal. Jessie filed a restraining order to prevent any further changes to the property. She drafted a cease and desist, and she walked me through filing a civil suit. Documentation is everything, she reminded me as I scrolled through my cloud drive for more photos. I found one, me with the contractor, holding the first draft of the blueprints. Another, me painting the guest room ceiling, my initials written on the primer. Each image added bricks back to the structure of my identity. And then came the video. From a backup camera I had long forgotten, one wired into the basement, meant for security during renovations. In the footage, dated 3 nights after the dinner, I watched them. My father hauling boxes, my mother directing movers, Rachel pointing toward the fireplace. It was like watching a heist. Only the treasure was me. At the end of the clip, my mother looked straight into the camera. Her expression wasn't fearful, it was resolved. Do you think she'll notice? One mover asked. She won't come back, my mom replied. Emily never fights, she disappears. Jessie watched the footage in silence. When it ended, she exhaled slowly. Well, she said, I think it's time you show them how wrong they were. We made 3 copies, one for court, one for safekeeping, one for the day I'd return, not with a plea, but with proof. The courtroom wasn't grand, no marble columns, no oak-paneled drama, just beige walls, humming fluorescents, and the low static of whispers. But to me, it was an arena, and for once I wasn't the one standing alone. Jessie stood beside me like a shield in a blazer, calm, focused, deadly. Across the aisle sat my parents and Rachel. My mother avoided eye contact. My father's arms were crossed like he was the one on trial. Rachel wore a smirk that didn't quite reach her eyes. The judge, a woman in her 60s with the no-nonsense face of someone who's seen too much entitlement, called the room to order. Jessie opened strong. She laid out the timeline, the evidence, the quiet surgical betrayal, and then she played the footage. There it was, my family moving into my house like burglars with a key, my belongings vanishing into a truck, the words, "She never fights, she disappears." The judge paused the video. She looked over her glasses and said, Ms. Caldwell, are you contesting ownership of the property? My mother stiffened. We were just helping. Emily was overwhelmed. She wanted us involved. Jessie raised a brow. And that warranted removing her from her home? Rachel leaned forward, her voice sharper. She was emotionally unstable. We didn't think she'd come back. I stood then, quietly. Your Honor, I said, my voice steadier than I thought possible. I wasn't unstable. I was uncomfortable. I invited them to dinner, not to take my life apart while I slept. I held up the photo of me holding the house key the day I closed escrow. This house was my healing, and they turned it into their playground. The judge nodded once. You have documentation proving full ownership? Jessie handed over the file. Signed, notarized, paid in full. The silence that followed wasn't empty, it was shifting weight, a balance returning to the center. The judge's ruling was swift. Full possession reverts to Ms. Emily Harper. Immediate vacate order to all parties currently occupying the residence. A restraining order shall be placed. Civil damages to be determined in follow-up proceedings. My mother gasped. My father stood to object, but the bailiff raised a hand. Rachel muttered, "This is a joke." I turned to her. "No, this is justice, and it's long overdue." Outside the courtroom, Jessie and I stood on the steps. The breeze felt different, lighter. "You were brilliant," she said. "I was terrified," I replied. She smiled. "Sometimes those are the same thing." I looked back at the courthouse door. I hadn't burned bridges. I'd walked across them and locked them behind me. 2 weeks after the verdict, I started getting letters. Not from the court, but from creditors. Accounts I hadn't opened, loans I hadn't signed, a credit card bill from a boutique I'd never set foot in. Someone was trying to stain my name in invisible ink. Jessie met me again, this time in my living room, my real one, reclaimed and silent, except for the hum of lavender in the diffuser. "They're retaliating," she said, tapping through the fraud alerts on my phone. "Identity theft, financial sabotage. It's not just petty, it's prosecutable." "They think they're being clever," I whispered. She looked at me, sharp as ever. "Let's be cleverer." We opened a case with the state's Identity Protection Bureau, froze my credit, notified the banks. Jessie filed a motion to alert the court of continued harassment. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I sat down with a cyber forensic analyst. Within 72 hours, he traced the IP address of 2 loan applications to my father's work computer, another to Rachel's apartment Wi-Fi, and one, my favorite, to a device registered in my mother's name, used during their spa retreat in Sedona. Jessie filed a motion for criminal investigation. This time, the call didn't come from me. It came from the district attorney's office. My phone lit up with a blocked number. "Ms. Harper, we've received credible evidence of financial fraud. Are you willing to press charges?" My hand tightened around the phone, not out of fear, but out of clarity. "Yes," I said, "but I don't want drama. I want the law." The irony wasn't lost on me. My parents had always preached appearances, grace, keeping family matters private. Now they were being subpoenaed. I didn't gloat, I didn't even smile. Instead, I changed every password, deleted old accounts, and installed a new security system, this time with facial recognition. Silence became my strategy. When Rachel sent a text, "You really want this to go public?" I didn't reply. When my father emailed, "Let's be civil," I archived it. And when my mother left a voicemail with carefully worded guilt, "You're breaking our family," I played it once, then sent it to Jessie. Because they had mistaken my silence for surrender. They never understood it was my weapon. It took me 3 full minutes to unlock the door. Not because the key jammed, but because my hand hesitated, mid-air, mid-thought, mid-memory. This wasn't the same house I had left. It was quiet, yes, but it wasn't peace. It was the kind of silence that holds its breath, that waits to see what version of you will walk through the door. I stepped in slowly. The air was different, or maybe I was. Every step echoed slightly off, like the walls were still listening for my mother's commands, my sister's heels, my father's authority. I dropped my bag on the floor, not carefully, deliberately. Then I opened every window, every single one. Let the wind blow through their shadows. Over the next few weeks, I unmade them. I started with the kitchen drawer, the one where Rachel used to hide her favorite silverware. I dumped everything, gave what I could, recycled the rest, replaced them with mismatched pieces I found at a thrift store downtown. Nothing matched. Everything was mine. In the hallway, I pulled down the canvas they hung crooked, always pretending it was centered. I put up a frame I had made in college. It was chipped, imperfect, real. The guest room still smelled like Rachel's perfume. I repainted it. 4 coats, sunlight yellow. And when I reached the living room, I didn't rearrange the furniture. I replaced it. The couch went first, then the rug, then the mirror that never reflected me right. Each removal felt like peeling off old wallpaper, a layer of someone else's life that had settled onto mine. But it wasn't all rage, there were pauses, stillness. At night, I'd light 1 lavender candle and sit in the center of my empty living room. Let the walls learn my breath again. Let the house know the war is over, that it no longer had to brace itself. Sometimes I'd find small things, a chipped mug my father used, a scarf my mother left behind, a receipt with Rachel's handwriting. I didn't burn them. I boxed them, labeled "what was." And in a hidden corner of the attic, I placed the box gently, like a chapter I had finished but would not forget. I wasn't erasing history. I was refusing to live inside it.